Your fleet carrier's so fat I had to go to Super Cruise to get to its good side.
Well, your fleet carrier is so undeveloped, it has an umbilical cord.
Your fleet carrier's so ugly it makes blind people cry.
And your fleet carrier is so boring it puts even NPCs in coma.
Your fleet carrier's so terrible the receipt is just an apology letter.
Right, but your fleet carrier is so broken it set the development roadmap back by 2 years. It was 2017, October 7th, Frontier Expo. First and currently last such event. I am traveling alone for the first time and to UK no less. Frankly, I'm surprised that I didn't get stabbed. Anyways, the big keynote comes up and developers talk about the Beyond. The following series of updates, once Horizons ended on such a small whimper, it really smelled like a horrible management and planning. They then announced two big things: the selling points of Beyond, the squadrons, for which they trotted out a single picture of same-looking paint job ships. And for the second thing, they didn't even bother doing that much, but just simply mentioned the word fleet carriers. Then, skip 2.5 years, here we are. 2 delays and seemingly third or even fourth version of this, the culmination of what they so carefully squeezed out of the corporate anus.
I don't know. I generally feel better after dropping a deuce. This just makes me feel worse, especially when I look at it. Visually, it does what it says on the tin, this thing carries other ships, but holy hot damn is this thing boring. A set of flat planes on an engine housing may be effective, but it's also pretty uninspired. I feel like a fully fleshed out capital class ship with some docking bays would have given this a bit more gravitas, because it feels less like a fleet carrier and more like a car hauler. That said, when you get up close you start noticing these tiny details in and around the thing. The cargo containers strapped to the undercarriage, the semi-opened engine housing just below the flight deck, and this oddly interesting fin at the bottom that I need to imagine has all types of interesting reasons for being there. From this perspective, you really start to get an idea of just how big this thing actually is. And it's yours. A mobile space station that you can park virtually anywhere. That is actually impressive. And while it doesn't actually do all that much, it's pretty easy to let your imagination run wild with what could be happening here, what this thing could be doing. And then, and only then, it does become somewhat beautiful.
Ah yes, the imagination of what could happen is strong here. Seems developers wanted us to imagine the gameplay too. And indeed, most of the game while providing subpar tools. Like going to a friend's place. He's not that well off, so he has toys, but all of them are broken or missing pieces. So while you could imagine a great time, you just end up sitting in the smelly living room and touching toys that are probably older than you, and under normal circumstances would probably be classified as a prison shank than a fucking toy. But that's the thing with these megaships. Sorry, I meant, actually no, these are fucking megaships, just shittier version. So here's the thing, they reuse the jumping animation from capital ships. Awesome! That's a perfect way to use existing tools at your disposal. Someone actually tried putting in effort, but that only goes so far. You see, first, these megaships have jump penalties. According to developers, that exists so that you feel the weight of the thing. How it's a massive thing. But you know what else gives you the impression that you damage your own ship when you use it? Actually fucking seeing the damage!
And why can't I see the jump animation that's actually happening?
Normal ships have paint scratches and little textures or sprites applied to them when shot or traveling for long. Yet, the same could not be done for the most massivest penis content in Elite history! Now, I could also mention that it would be super cool to see exploded barrels or warped metal for the model in some places to visually indicate the wear and tear. But hey, if they can't be asked to do shit with textures, unless it's for microtransactions of course, then why did I expect them to do modeling work either? Oh, and speaking of effort and visuals, so each megaship has their own setup. For fleet carriers, we have to equip services, and you know what would be a pretty cool idea? Having visual parts represent each service on the exterior of this fucking embarrassment of a space garbage. Like on a gun when you upgrade it in many games. Considering that megaships already have this similar, let's slap a Model A on the base Model C. This could have been a quite cool and efficient way of reusing assets and it not looking like you're just another hack.
And then you could add another interesting mechanic, like whether independent modules could be disabled or destroyed, because as it stands right now, it's an invulnerable piece of space flotsam that you get to land on, and that's about it. I can't really judge its performance because it doesn't really do much of anything. More importantly, we don't have anything to compare it to. So good? It performs good? Unless we're talking about the confusing menus.
Or the limited market,
Or moving things between storage.
or the fact that you can transfer credits to others very easily,
Or planning specific jumps.
or inability to fuel your own megaship from its own storage.
Then no, performance is pretty damn bad.
5 fucking billion credits. This thing is 5 fucking billion. But you know what? That's okay. Yes, I'm absolutely fine even if these things cost 40 billion.
Really? I'm not. I can't fly it, I can't control it, and for some reason it doesn't fuel scoop tritium, an actual isotope that's literally emitted from stars.
You see, these things are the ultimate power fantasy. You gotta realize that even 5 billion is a massive credit amount and is pure proof that the player who can afford it already has done 2 things. Number 1, grinded the game like crazy, and or number 2, did so by playing the game for a long time. So knowing this, for a player who in any normal other game would have reached the end probably multiple times, having this OP massive thing is pretty decent reward. I mean, that's why games have these Game Plus or cheats unlocked once you finish. Sure, this is a multiplayer game, so it has to be toned down, but the idea is still there. However,
Doesn't it have to do something to be considered overpowered?
well, besides that, is grinding to win the right message you want to send to your community? Wouldn't it be better? And I love this idea that one of my viewers on stream one day suggested. Just give out a free fleet carrier to triple elites. Sure, it's still grindy, but at least it's twice as varied than the boron or whatever other mining grind out there. Plus, that would put a weight on actually being elite. And still, we're not done.
Neither is this feature.
We know that these player megaships went through several phases and iterations. At first it was meant to be squadron owned. Then they decided, oh shit, players hate squadrons. Totally not because we're absolute idiots who only made them all about leaderboards. No, it's player fault. Okay, carriers now will need changes.
I mean, seriously, guild system was so desperately needed. How could they have fucked it up this hard is beyond me.
And so they made them into per player owned ones. Then decided, hey, community is giving us a free excuse to delay them with their outcry how shit our September update was. Okay, let's do it and make them better. So now we got one base carrier type and services we can install. Okay, I don't give 2 shits as long as it works and is fun. But it wasn't even that! Let's then beat the dead horse. In the first beta, these chuckle fucks tipped their hand and revealed how out of touch they are by filling the fleet carrier with sunk cost mechanics in a form of a weekly rent. I mean, upkeep. And selling penalties according to the distance from the nearest carrier selling. And a fucking depreciation. Yes, the longer you would have the fleet carrier in your possession, the less it would refund if you wanted to sell it or was forced to sell due to huge debt. And thus the loop of the sunk cost was created. This was the amazing reveal of how inept and clueless these people in management roles are. I don't blame the poor coders or testers for this, even though some of the menus were still broken as well after these 2 fucking years. The biggest blame certainly goes to the producers, designers, and directors.
But the developers heard you. They made changes. And any other complaints are completely irrelevant now, right?
Because it's not irrelevant. Yes, they unfucked themselves, mostly. but upkeep is still around, and that is a mechanic that turns your fleet carrier into your second job, not a fucking reward that it should be. If you really need a penalty or some sort of offset mechanic for these positives, this weekly drainage is not the way to do it. Arguably, you can say that even the price tag was big enough. To further beat this decomposing horse, no matter what this thing gets changed into, this shows you what the developers thought of you as the player, how they act, and what they considered good. Yes, getting the thing right the first go is really near impossible, but wildly going the other way and making it nearly the worst possible thing is something you have to actively try, and they succeeded. Sure, now it's mostly unfucked, and only upkeep remains, which in my book is still completely unacceptable and malicious, even anti-fun. But even once we would get out of this miscarriage slurpy juice of hell, what you can do with the fleet carrier is its own biggest enemy. So let's take the ability to sell ships and modules. For these, you can't manually stock things you want. No, you have to buy fucking bundles of modules and ships. Developers claim that this is done so that you, the player, won't fuck up and forget to stock something and make it more predictable. Basically, they're saying that you're too stupid to manually restock your megaship.
If this were actually true, you'd never have to remember to stock up on limpets. Why aren't those auto-filled when I restock and rearm?
Thing is, yes, have the bundles, they save time, but we need not only the shortcut, but also the long way of doing things. Simple as that. Well, actually, this is a side, but still. Why the fuck do we have this many limpet controllers in the first place? Isn't it high time we change that? Speaking of issues that fleet carriers bring to light about the whole game, why would anyone go to a fleet carrier to buy stuff?
Well, if I'm really that far out in the black, I might need to replace something.
Okay, maybe one case, but my point is, elite developers think that in year 3300, discovering things is gameplay, when referring to places that sell carriers, or anything for that matter. Developers still think that to this day it's acceptable that the game does not give you information about a starport or megaship, like what they sell and for how much. This task is relegated and in fact depended on third-party developers like LA Database. If you don't know what I mean, ask yourself, how much fun or how long would it take for you to get angry if you could not use any third-party tools? Thanks to the player megaships, the blatant issue of most rudimentary and basic tools, or lack of them, is brought to forefront even more. The only way you know what the fleet carrier is selling in outfitting or shipyard is to go to it, without any promise of success. And then do so for the stations too. So realistically, why would you go to a fleet carrier that has much greater chance of wasting your time than a starport? Better yet, because you can't sell ships and modules for lower than 100% of the market price, you will in best case scenario buy stuff at the normal price. But more likely, thanks to tariffs, you'll pay upwards to twice as much the market price. So why? Why would you even go to fleet carriers unless it's literally the only thing around for thousands of light years? Developers need to get their dumb fuck heads out of their asses and stop smelling the forum thoughts that the yes men produce. We need tools for your game, and if it wasn't clear enough, no, discovering prices and places that sell things is not fucking gameplay. It's tedious, horrible shitfest when you have procedurally generated bazillions of systems and starports. Fuck your discovery and spend some god fucking damn effort that your fans did. Fuck. Hire those glorious motherfuckers who made the tools. At least they know what the fucking effort is.
If your game is literally unplayable without a third-party tool, then you might need to make some major quality of life improvements. And speaking of quality of life improvements, you need meaningful content. Small narratives to give us a reason for power play and factions. Gameplay loops that complement each other instead of being wholly separate. You need alternatives to combat and mining. You need to make us feel like the things we do matter, and the things that we earn make a difference. Right now, the only difference a fleet carrier makes is that I feel like I had enough credits to spend 5 billion of them. But buying it doesn't make me an integral part of the galaxy, or change my experience at all. The opportunities it does offer of crashing a market or traveling to certain sections of the galaxy don't really mean a lot to me personally either. We don't have an actual economy to crash, and there's not going to be anything new in that sector anyway. Just the same geyser that's on every other planet. Not too long ago, me and Yamix were discussing how a product should be judged, and if it was reasonable to grade something if it clearly wasn't finished, or if it was greatly changed over time. I said at the time that these things need to be considered when you experience them, but that it was perfectly reasonable for a grade and a product to change over time for the better, or worse. I would hope that the fleet carrier as it's presented here is indicative of gameplay and expanded mechanics that would be implemented later on. And that eventually, this thing, Space Legs, and the galaxy as a whole will be better off for it, and deserve high marks. But if I'm being honest, I simply don't believe that's going to happen. I don't actually have that hope. Not in this case. I don't think it's likely that fleet carriers will ever be any more useful or functional than they are right now. And I've come to this conclusion because, well, I've been paying attention. There's a lot of the galaxy that's, and I'm being kind here, unfinished, half-baked, or all but abandoned. Things that seem like they should have an impact on the galaxy don't. And still others just don't matter enough to be expanded upon, or frankly, even fixed. That's not a good look. And as much as I would want, desperately, to believe that this time is different, I just don't. It's expensive, useless for most commanders, and a pointless credit sink. It's a failure in my book.
Indeed, the track record of developer will complete and flesh it out later is, as British would say, spotty. But I'm not British, I'm Latvian, and to me this is a major lack of completeness and follow-through. Squadrons, half-baked even after the so-called alpha meeting where they invited influencers and community people, of course myself excluding. It still glitches on UI and has basically no use, despite their warnings. CQC is abandoned in a base level, Powerplay, though most complete, like upkeep on fleet carriers, has horrible mechanics, and do I even need to mention multicrew, or Targoid story and narrative? So, no, what we see is what we get, and zero guarantee for changes. As a tool, these player-owned mobile stations, in many ways, are too powerful of a tool that should have never been given to players, I think. Mainly, it's just too hard to balance it right, and it quickly and wildly swings in either overpowered or underpowered territories. Yet they're oddly balanced out by the lack of tools that would allow them to become properly used. This is like literally the weirdest unintentional balance I've ever seen. Though with all this, I see a great potential in emerging gameplay for this. But it comes at too great of a cost, and no, I'm not referring to the purchase cost here. The megaships help us to point to bigger issues in the game that hinder their actual usability, and though I would like to hope, dream, and look forward to improvements, the tracking MO of the team has been clear, as we both stated today. I do wish I could come back to this video one day and just simply say, "Ha! You were wrong, you cunts! They did good things!" But forgive me if I don't hold my breath for this. What truly feels the most depressing thing about this whole feature is that back in 2017 in Frontier Expo, even then when they had no pictures or concept art to show us about these things, when I met DJ Truthsayer and later on watched a keynote with him and Obsidian in front of me, even back then it felt like a last minute idea cooked up by one of the higher ups who didn't really give a fuck about the game, just wanted the sales and the wow look at this thing marketing. So fuck that person in particular. Right now, this thing is being released mere half a year before the new era can be announced. And that's it, it's a publicity stopgap before the next console generation, where more witless moneybags and whales come floating in. That's what Elite has become, it seems. And I fucking hate that I've come to this realization. Oh, wait, hold on. They released Odyssey, the new era trailer before releasing this thing? Are they really undercutting this feature's release? Why? It feels like a mistake. Honestly, I don't know what to think now. I guess the fleet carriers are that unimportant. Okay, fine. So, in the end, the fleet carrier, this big thing, this grandiose whale, your mama and whatnots. I think best is encapsulated in the term dildozer. Yes, it's a perfect phrase for this.
I'm gonna go with the undesirable prize. Thanks. I hate it.
And then it just keeps on going and going and going and going and never stopping, like a massive diarrhea. It just keeps on flowing. Oh God. Oh, this is the best name for a fleet carrier ever. Dildozer. I love it. Oh, thank you for that name. Thank you. Oh, it's great. Well, that's a shitty angle, and my camera controls are borked as well, so that's why we are basically having literally no proper visuals, because wonderful controls on the camera. What the fuck? Oi! Oi, where? What? Where's my... It should have been there. Did the game just take away my... Where's my dildozer? Oh no! Oh no! Okay, here we go. Okay, it was a visual bug. As I was filming around and so on and so forth, I noticed something. I noticed a floating platform that doesn't seem to be attached to anything. Level designers? No, model design? What the fuck is this, guys? Come on! Alright, let's try this. God damn it! Oh no. Oh no. Oh fuck, God damn it, I'm stuck! Oh shit. Oh no! Oh no! Fuck me!